Chapter 6. The hauler shuddered beneath Davin as he kept his eyes glued to the scanner. The 3 fast-moving blips on the display grew closer by the second. His heart raced. Whatever was coming, it wasn't scavenger drones. They moved with intent, closing in too fast and too coordinated. "Jonas, these readings, it looks like more than just scrap debris," Davin called out over comms, keeping his voice steady despite the gnawing anxiety. Jonas's response was sharp. "We've got trouble, kid. Those aren't scavengers, they're raiders. Stay sharp, don't panic. They'll try to spook us and take everything." Davin's hands tightened on the controls. Raiders. He'd heard stories about them, rogue pilots eking out a living by ambushing salvage teams. Their mechs were old, pieced together from whatever junk they could scavenge, but they were heavily armed and dangerous. "Get ready to move. They'll go for the cargo first," Jonas warned. A flicker of movement caught Davin's eye through the cracked visor of the hauler. 3 bulky mechs materialized from the hazy horizon, their armor dulled with age but bristling with makeshift weapons. Plasma cutters, missile pods, and scrap-plated shields. One of them raised its arm, and with a burst of smoke, a flurry of small rockets spiraled towards Davin's hauler. "Move, kid!" Jonas barked. Davin didn't hesitate. Years of muscle memory kicked in as he threw the hauler's thrusters into full power, the clunky machine roaring to life. The cockpit rattled violently as the rockets slammed into the dirt behind him, spraying debris and shrapnel across the terrain. Davin gritted his teeth and powered forward, weaving through jagged outcroppings of metal beams and broken rock. The old hauler wasn't built for combat, but Davin knew terrain, if he could just stay unpredictable. Another barrage whistled through the air, this time aimed at Jonas's rig. Jonas swerved deftly, but one missile clipped the cargo bay, sending a shower of scrap flying into the air. "Damn it," Jonas growled. "They're not playing games. We need to split up. Draw them off." Davin's pulse pounded in his ears. "On it!" He swung his hauler hard to the right, aiming for the steep rise of debris. It was a gamble. If the thrusters failed, the rig would tip, but it was his best shot at losing at least one pursuer. The mech groaned in protest as he forced it up the slope, the stabilizers screaming. 2 of the raiders followed, their rigs lumbering after him like predators, scenting blood. Jonas's voice crackled through the comms. "Smart move, kid. Just keep him off me while I secure what's left of the load. You're doing fine." Davin clenched his jaw, hands flying across the control panel. The hauler bucked as it cleared the rise, landing heavily on uneven ground. A quick glance at the scanner told him that both raiders were still hot on his tail, but the third had fallen back, likely harassing Jonas. He needed to lose these 2, and fast. Spotting a narrow gap between 2 wrecked mining drills, Davin made his move. The hauler surged forward, narrowly slipping between the giant rusted machines. One of the raiders tried to follow, but miscalculated the turn, its rig slamming into the side of the drill, its arm snapping off in a burst of sparks. "Yeah, one down!" Davin whooped, but his celebration was short-lived. The second raider wasn't far behind, and this one was smarter. It aimed a plasma cutter at the hauler's exposed side, sending a white-hot beam slicing towards Davin. He yanked hard on the controls, steering the hauler into a sharp skid just as the beam lanced past, carving a molten scar into the ground where he had been seconds ago. "That's all you've got?" Davin muttered under his breath, adrenaline surging through his veins. He spotted an old processing platform ahead, a perfect bottleneck. If he could time it right, he could force the raider to overshoot and crash into the platform. Come on," Davin whispered as the hauler rumbled forward, kicking up dust and debris. The raider followed, its plasma cutter glowing hot. But just as the platform loomed close, Davin veered sharply to the left, forcing the hauler into a controlled spin. The raider tried to adjust, but it was too slow. Its momentum carried it forward, slamming into the platform with a deafening crunch. The mech crumpled, sparks flying from its exposed circuits. Davin let out a shaky breath, hands trembling on the controls. 2 down. "Jonas, you good?" Davin called, steering the hauler back towards the rendezvous point. "I'm alive. Took a few hits, but nothing I can't patch up," Jonas replied. "You?" 2 of them down. How's the last one?" There was a beat of silence before Jonas's gruff chuckle came through the comms. "I figured out I'm not worth the trouble. Looks like We scared him off, kid. Nice work. Davin sagged in relief, his heartbeat still thundering in his chest. He guided the hauler back to Jonas's position, where the older pilot was already assessing the damage to his rig. Jonas gave Davin a nod as he climbed out of the cockpit, dusting off his gloves. Not bad for your first fight, kid. You kept your head. It's more than most rookies could say. Davin grinned, despite the ache in his muscles and the sweat soaking through his clothes. Guess all that hauling back home paid off. Jonas smirked. Maybe, but don't get cocky. This is a wake-up call. Ironspire ain't just about work. It's about survival. And you just learned the hard way that sometimes you gotta fight to keep what's yours. As the two pilots began the slow process of recovering what was left of their cargo, Davin couldn't help but reflect on Jonas's words. This place wasn't Asara Prime. The rules here were different. Technical skills alone wouldn't be enough to make it in Ironside. He needed to be ready for anything, ready to fight, to defend, to survive. Jonas clapped him on the back. You did good today, kid. But if you want to stick around, you're going to need more than quick reflexes. You got potential. Now let's see if you've got the guts to make it. Davin nodded, determination hardening in his chest. He'd come to Ironspire to build a new life, and if that meant learning to fight, then so be it. Because one thing was clear, the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. But, for the first time since arriving in Ironspire, Davin felt like he had what it took to walk it, and he wasn't going to let anyone, anything, stop him.